I'm not going to go into, first of all, yeah, I just want to let you know October, we are going to be, again, down in GSA, thanks to Terry. I think it's 1459.
Yeah, across the atrium.
Okay, on the other side of the atrium, 1459, and that's going to be it's going to be an interesting one. We do a lot of federal HR and learning topics. This one is going to be DoD, and it's going to be the human capital executives from DoD Healthcare. So we haven't really, with the exception of having BA on a couple of things, we haven't really had listened to the healthcare aspect of human capital, as well as DoD. We've been getting more and more DoD people participating on these calls, especially remote people. Try to make this casual, so there's no PowerPoint presentations. I'm not going to stand here and read War and Peace because they're all very talented individuals. It would take half the day or half the meeting for me to read all of their bios. So they gave us very many ones to put into this brochure. I do want to, we came to this discussion because it came to my attention that HCMG last year, I think it was November or December, was not well attended. But a couple of folks, including our communications chair, Bob, heard really good things about this, this discussion and suggested that, we do that as a free SIG event versus a paid conference event, as a lot of our members would introduce that. So Miriam and Catherine are two of the original on the panel. Carlisa's boss was on the original, and she's sitting in for him today. And rather than having an industry person be the moderator, who paid for, a speaking position, I've asked Elizabeth, very shy, non-controversial Elizabeth, to be our moderator. She's not enthusiastic about anything. I have to hold her down. Elizabeth was recently on a panel for credentialing and certification, a passion of hers, and another passion of hers is on rotation. And so, although she's the Chico at US Aid, currently she's had two hats the last couple of weeks because she's transitioning into a position at OMD. And so she now gets to have, the rotation that she's excited about. So what goes around comes around.
That's right. Absolutely.
So with that, I'm going to introduce Elizabeth, and she can tell you a little bit more about who she is, what she's doing, and her thoughts on this topic.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to those of you here in the room and on the phone, and who will be joining us virtually, probably watching this later on as a video webcast. It's really a great pleasure to be here with such an esteemed panel of colleagues who are as shy as I am and as dispassionate about talent management as I am. But no, there really is quite a buzz, as you know, in the whole area of integrated talent management and how do you tie your workforce direction, your workforce plan to the strategic goals of your organization. And we are really in a journey on this one. I wish it was a overnight flip the switch and it's done, but it's not. It's very complicated, as all things that have to do with people certainly are. A little bit about myself, there is a little bio in there, but one of the things that I bring to the table is I'm actually a doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology. So my field, I come from a scientific field where we always seek evidence-based, we always use data, statistical methods to drive our programs. And so I think I've been able to bridge bringing the technical field to the HR programs and strategies that, as a Chico, that I oversee. So that's one little piece of my background. The other unique thing is I'm in my 6th agency. I've been at the FBI, the CIA, the ODNI, helped stand up TSA after 9/11, and now at USAID. So I've seen a lot of the spectrum of how our federal government works in national security and law enforcement and intelligence, and it's something I carry with great pride, my service, as all of us do in the federal sector, but every day it just really motivates me, the workforce that we have, the people that come every day to work for the government, for the nation, for the world. are incredible, and they deserve to have these talent systems we're going to be talking about that serve them to bring their very best to the job every day. And that's what we want to do. We want to bring out their talent, their high performance toward our mission every day. And so we can't forget that, and it's just wonderful that we have such a great base to work from. But having said that, I also, and I was in private sector for a little while, but I also often hear when I talk to private sector colleagues in talent management and HR, you know, there's this sort of stereotype that the private sector has the monopoly on innovation and creativity. I don't think so. I think we have just as much, if not more, opportunities and demonstrations of innovation and creativity in the public sector. And with our partnerships, I know some of you in the room are in the consulting world and contracting, and we do public-private partnerships all the time with academia and so forth. And I think those are the models that bring out the very best. And so I really want to say that part of our theme here today is what are those innovations that we in the public sector are already using or are trying out to show that we're very much part of this whole transformation that's going on. Because I know oftentimes leadership will come and say, well, what's the private sector doing? Well, private sector's blowing up their performance appraisal system, so we should too, you know. And it's like, but, you know, hold on, you know, yeah, we've got a lot of really neat things that we have been doing and what we're doing, but you know, it's sometimes a little bit like they're always looking to try to catch up, but we're the ones that have to say, well, there are federal regulations and there are some things different, but we also, here are some of the innovations and things that we are doing. So that not to lose the sight of innovation is really important in everything that we're doing. So I want to just briefly introduce the panel and then kick off this topic because I know we have a lot to cover. We won't get through it all, but again, well, thank you for inviting us to have this session today. Starting with Catherine Emerson here to my right. She is the Chief Human Capital Officer at DHS. I often say the hardest job in the government. I think the Chicos are the hardest job, but I think of the Chicos that Catherine took on the Department of Homeland Security Chico job, and really such an ongoing transformation there of a merging of so many agencies and standing up in national security and law enforcement. So she brings a lot to the panel, and we'll share some of the great efforts that DHS has underway. And Miriam Cohen, also another great representative of change and being a leader of change. She's the Chico at the NRC. Which is also one of those agencies that we like to look at and see what they're doing in the human capital and talent management arena. And then Carlise Kelly, thank you for coming in when Billy was unable to make it. Carlise is our Deputy Chico over at Department of Agriculture and Provost, and she has a really strong theme on learning and development. And as we watch the transformation from the sort of more traditional training into that learning and development and tying career paths and competency models into the organization's success, she's done a lot over at USDA to lead the way in this, so we're looking forward to hear some of their best practices. All right, so, and then please read their bios in here. They're, again, very just credentialed and people that I learn from every day when we're tackling these big challenges. Why don't I start with what is talent management? There's a lot of definition. Oh, yes.
I was just going to suggest they each talk for about
Okay, great. Before we go to the questions and you're going to introduce yourselves, why don't you go ahead and give a little summary of each, so starting with Catherine.
Well, I'm Catherine Emerson, DHS Chief Human Capital Officer, and I am the first career employee in that position. Before that it was political. Before me, I think I'm Chico number 8. What I was told when I took the job. It's been extremely challenging, but one that's been rewarding, and we've been able to do a lot of great things at DHS over the years. DHS is the 3rd largest federal agency. We have over 230,000 employees, and that includes our Coast Guard military. So we've got a lot of opportunities for our people, a lot of good things going on in terms of recruitment that I'll be happy to share with you today.
Good morning, Miriam Cohen, and I heard Deb Tomczyk, but I can't see her back there. There she is. Hey, Deb. I haven't seen Deb probably in, I don't even know, almost 15 years or more. I started my career at the Department of Commerce and had a bunch of different positions there, and then I live in the Rockville area, and I used to look at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission building and say, I need a job there. So I was definitely looking for, work-life balance. I had 2 young kids at the time, and I had worked for a lot of political officials, and I was kind of done with that. So I like being flanked by 2 colleagues at large cabinet agencies. I'm very fortunate to be in a small independent agency. We're about 3,700 employees. We've traditionally been amongst the best places to work. We've been on a 5-year downward trend. Nothing that I'm particularly proud or happy about, but I think it's a reflection of the environment that we're in. And our agency is going through a particularly challenging time now as the supposed nuclear renaissance, did not happen as the price of natural gas and fracking have hit, the world. And we're in a period of, slow downsizing. And so when you've lived high off the hog and you've been at the top, when you go through those changes, it makes it very, very hard. So it's even more important in that environment to understand, how to retain the talent that you have.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Carlise Kelly at USDA. I am the Deputy Chico and the Chief Learning Officer. In 2010, when Billy asked me to come and work with him at the Chief Human Capital Officer area, the department USDA had no staff at the department level in training. So I left a job that I had loved at Food Safety and Inspection Service, part of USDA, where I had like 60 people and $20 million, and went to a job to serve 100,000 people with no staff and no money. I thought, what, am I crazy? But it's been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to grow something completely new, to help USDA employees who every day work to make sure we have a safe, abundant, and nutritious food supply for the country. And when they do their job well, nobody notices. But to make sure they have the training and development opportunities so that they can grow and excel and serve their very best. So I'm happy to be here today, and I'm excited about this conversation. I can't wait to hear from my colleagues and to hear from all of you as well.
Thank you. Great. Thank you so much. Now let me launch into talent management. I think this is a great topic. The title about developing a holistic and integrated approach to talent management is a theme that the speakers will draw from. But I think that because there's so many definitions out there on what is talent management, and that the whole field of human resources is in its transformation now, going from human resources into talent management. And that is something that I think the government at large is struggling with, and we need to continue to hone our strategies and even how we discuss this and how we define it. So SHRM has a great definition of talent management, and it's broadly defined as implementation of integrated strategies or systems designed to increase workplace productivity by developing improved processes for attracting, developing, retaining, and utilizing people with the required skills and aptitude to meet current and future business needs. So that's kind of a great textbook definition. I like to say it in layman's term, it's having the right people with the right skills in the right place at the right time. And I've added for the right cost, because we know we're in the fiscal constraints and times where budgets are being cut and scrutinized. So we also have to look at that whole return on investment and using the data to see if we're using the few dollars we have to invest in our people wisely and getting results from that. So right people with the right skills in the right place at the right time. Boy, does that sound like we need to know who we have, who works for us, what talents they have, where we can put them, where we deploy them, how long they're going to be needed, what is that effort going to be? Is that a long-term effort? Is it a short-term effort? And that really speaks to why we need to have excellent talent management strategies linked to the business strategy. We all know we do a lot of strategic planning in the government. We all have great plans and goals and objectives and vision statements, and we lay out 5-year plans and we attach our budget to what it's going to take to get there. We got to do the same sophisticated, surgical development of tools, methods, and frameworks around the people side of that equation. And that's what an integrated talent management approach will get you, which means it isn't just afterthought or reactive, or after everything else is done, now we'll figure out the people side. It has to be baked in as it's being developed. And that's something that I feel we have to do much more proactively in getting a workforce plan, in understanding our data, having good workforce data, good data to help inform those designs, and a systems approach. That's the other thing. We've got to break down the silos of even our talent, our programs, hiring, development, leadership succession, deployment, and those are all part of a system, but yet we have them somewhat parsed out still. And I think that's something that we're as Chicos really looking at. How do we do that? I've always said, I kind of started my career as a selection IO and hiring and developing selection tests and methodologies. And when you do that and you do it right, you learn a lot about the candidates, about their skills and their strengths, and even some development areas of the people you're hiring. And then we kind of leave that on the cutting room floor, and then we start them on an IDP and performance plans, and we've not used the information we gleaned from all those tests and assessments that where you spent time interviewing these people and learning about them. That should start their portfolio of their career plan, get it going into the agency, and we don't. We have those siloed off. We don't start a plan and then build it into a learning plan and their career mapping. So I think that things like that we're talking about, and we need now the technology and the systems to support that, to make it streamlined and very much simplified if possible, to share that data across the talent system. I also want to throw in the employee engagement. I know there have been some sessions here, and it'll come as a theme across here. One of the fascinating things around employee engagement is the recognition that it's not just about meaningful work, but that people are looking for enriched experiences in their work. It's not just, it doesn't seem like it's just a job anymore, it's just a paycheck. They're looking for what they can get out of it. They're going to spend more hours in work probably than at home across their career. What can they get out of it? How do they build their own skills and competencies that make themselves marketable or make themselves feel satisfied and enriched in a more personal experience? And I think that, as Chicos, is something that we're constantly balancing, which is what we're doing is supporting the organization's success. And for the public sector, the bottom line is our mission success. But we also have these people who are looking for something out of these systems to help them build and get better and know where they stand and understand what they're good at and what they're not good at, or what they like to do and what they don't. And so there's this balance of what the organization needs and what the people need. And so that's something that I think we're seeing in the engagement. We certainly have mission and purpose, and we really are attracting great talent, but are we giving them, when they come in, a career and a learning and development plan and a journey that makes them feel like they're getting something from all that they put in? It is not just enough, it seems like, that a paycheck is doing it anymore. They want to know they're developing themselves, that there's investment, and that they're growing as well. So I think that's fascinating. It's coming out of the engagement literature, and we really want to hear more about how the programs that you'll hear about today are building in not just organizational success, but the human, the personal experience and success there. And then career mobility is a theme. We certainly talk about millennials, but I don't want to even stereotype millennials. I think all generations we have people who want to look for opportunities to grow and to take on different aspects of work. And that, so I'm an example. I'm not a millennial, but I've certainly moved around a lot, and I continue to look for where I can broaden my experiences or learn different aspects of the government and work on those big challenges. So I think that the career mobility is more obvious to us now, and we've got to support that in our systems, and that it's not a one-size-fits-all. We can't expect people to stay in 25 plus years in one agency or in one department in one agency. They're looking for, well, what's it like? They're looking for variety. They're looking for different teams, networks. They want to work virtually. Let's work across the borders of these organizations and the borders of the domestic into international and so forth. So we've got to support that desire in the workforce that we have that's multi-generational, that are looking for different things in their different career stages. And so an added challenge to our putting a really solid talent strategy and workforce plan together. So I'm going to stop kind of framing up. There's environmental context, we know, driving a need for integrated talent management. There's the people side, which everybody's coming with their individual needs and desires and talents and looking for a system that helps them navigate through that and understand where they are today, and if they want to get in a certain direction, what they might do to get there. And so there's a lot going on in these big systems that we're really sort of grabbing the bull by the horns and putting together now. And so I'm going to start the panelists in one big area of talent management, which is recruiting and staffing. And so they're going to share some of their implementation, some actions and programs they've put into place to attract the best talent, but make that part of your sustainment of the organization's mission. How are you attaching what you're recruiting and attracting in terms of your new talent people in, and what tools are you using to take advantage of attracting great talent in, and then allowing that talent to move and look for career mobility and sort of that career pathing. And so I'll turn it over. Does anybody want to particularly jump in and start on?
I'll go first.
Okay, Catherine's going to start with that first area of talent.
Well, as I said before, DHS, a very large organization, over 230,000 employees. So we are very lucky in that our mission, protecting the homeland, and as we reflect on tomorrow, 9/11, a lot of people are attracted to that. It's a mission that people really can find themselves dedicated to. So in terms of attracting talent, we were able to attract quite a bit of talent. We're always hiring. We've got a lot, with that many people, you know, we always have retirement or people moving on, so we always have opportunities. But what we've done in the department, we have a workforce council that comes together, as Elizabeth referenced before, 22 agencies coming together to make up Homeland. So we have a lot of different job series, a lot of different mission critical occupations. We've set up in the Chico office a group that does strategic workforce analysis, where they look at what our employment looks like this year, what's going to look like in 2 years, what's going to look like 5 years out. Elizabeth referenced the strategic human capital plans. We have a very strong one, a working living document in Ochiko at DHS, and we have all the components that have buy-in with that plan, and we have metrics that we follow, and it's tied in with the strategic workforce office, and we look at what our numbers, what kind of positions we're going to need as we go forward. How old is our workforce? What type of mission critical occupations are we going to need in the future? You know, we're looking at all different type of positions: Border Patrol agents, cybersecurity experts, immigration experts. So you name it, we pretty much got it over. In addition to the budget analysts, human resource folks, IT, etc. So we have all the components coming together, and we're really working with our diversity and inclusion office, which is also under Ochiko, looking at how we can find the best, the brightest, most diverse workforce to come and work at DHS. And like I said, we're very lucky in that people are attracted to our mission. One group that we found particularly is well suited for DHS work are veterans. And we have almost 28% of our workforce is veterans. They like our law enforcement portion of DHS. They come and they stay, which is really good. So we've tapped into that. We've also worked with our affinity groups, as well as doing hiring fairs. And when I first got there, one of the things we did with our hiring fairs is you'd see different booths at hiring fairs with, let's say, Customs and Border Patrol in one spot, and then ICE over in another. What we've done is brought that together. So we're sharing those resources so that when you look at DHS, you're looking at it across the department, not just individual components, and breaking down those stovepipes. And that gives the folks an opportunity to see that they're not just coming into, let's say, Customs and Border Patrol, but there's going to be opportunities. I'll look at Elizabeth because she worked at TSA. there's gonna be opportunities at TSA or vice versa. So that's another great selling point that we have that perhaps the little agencies like Mary we can promise folks, there's a lot of opportunity at DHS just because of the sheer volume. So, and we've gotten away from looking at it if an employee leaves from, let's say, ICE to go over to TSA, that's not a bad thing. In fact,
That's right.
that's a really good thing. So as we look at, as long as they can go out to the government or to the federal sector, private sector, that's a good thing. We want to allow our people to move around and have opportunities, especially for our millennial folks who are coming in, the younger folks who want to move around every couple of years. That's a good thing. So we want to show them that we have opportunities. One thing that we've done is put on our inward-facing webpage all the opportunities in DHS, so we can share that message, and that's something that our current Secretary Johnson, has made a priority because he wants to retain our people, and we actually do a very good job at retaining our talent. They come in, they love our mission, and they stay, so that's a good news story.
I would like to piggyback on that, Catherine. It's Elizabeth again, because what happened when I was at TSA, this airport screener jobs really were graded 5, 6, and 7 equivalents, and we had pay bands, but equivalent. And we were able to get a little career path, but there really is not a lot of career path growth. They're really in that security guard classification area. And we worked with broader DHS to say, why don't we make it a career pathing that if you're super, you're a great screener, that you can move over. And we saw that actually a lot of ours were moving into Border Patrol agents and in some of the other customs work. And that really was so great. We got an interchange agreement, so they had competitive status because TSA has some unique authorities. But we were able to do that, and we had to change the culture that it's not a bad thing. Hear what Catherine said. We can't treat our workforce like traitors when they leave our agency, and that is sort of a very old school mentality that they're one of us or they're not one of us. No, one of us, we could at least say is the whole government, but we could certainly say DHS is a family of integrated agencies all in national security, homeland security, and that it's a good thing. And so we actually built a program where screeners could very quickly move and compete and move over in a competitive status over to these other, and it was a great attraction for them, because if they look at just TSA, they're going to go, well, I'm going to cap out at a 7. That's not much of a career. But if you start to see moving in, and some of those who went into law enforcement, federal air marshals and others, and that's a great way to bring talent. So we invest in getting them good at security screening, at protocols, at standard operating procedures as agents of the TSA, and then they're ready to really hit the ground running to take that next move. So that is a really, I think, state-of-the-art thing that we need to do more of, finding those occupational paths across our agencies and departments and really across the broader government.
Another thing that we've done to pick up on what Elizabeth was saying is, of course, DHS is a very young agency, a young department, and it is very stovepipe, and it's hard to break down those, we're CBP, we're ICE, we're TSA. It's hard, but we've done a really good job of that, and one of the things that we've done is we've put together a department-wide SES CDP. So instead of each agency running their own senior executive program, we have a DHS-wide, and that has been a tremendous success. And at first we got a lot of pushback with that, as they did not want to do it. But now we find everyone who goes through that, as well as the components for the most part, saying, you know what, this is the best thing we ever did. It lets our people see that there are other opportunities and learn from one another, because in reality we all share the same mission, and that's protecting our homeland. So big success for our lower grades, but also for those who are interested in stepping up into the SES.
All right, Miriam, what's going on?
So in this little teeny tiny agency, so I mean, we all kind of do the same thing, right? The big mission, little mission. I mean, our mission is protecting people in the environment. We're a heavily scientific organization, really engineers and scientists. We don't have any trouble recruiting people, just like DHS. People like the mission. And as an accepted service agency, we're able to offer, recruitment incentives and those kind of things. We have a special pay scale for engineers and scientists. At one point, we always like to compete with the private sector in terms of starting salary, but under these budget constraints, that's not, we're falling a little bit behind, but we're still fairly competitive. One of the things that we like to do is, because we are a heavy scientific organization, we have a professional development intern program, so once we bring people on, we rotate them through various positions. It's a 2-year program, and it gives them substantive experience to learn, what's going on in the agency. And I think that that's really important, whether you're in good budget times or bad budget times, is give people opportunities to learn and grow and do different kinds of things. I think the diversity angle is extremely important. I think that when you look in this environment at opportunities, you want to make sure that everyone has a chance to compete. Even in our agencies, and we're going to get into this later on about training and development and what are people doing to move more this way, as opposed to vertically, because opportunities have been limited. We have always supported a very strong rotational program in our agency. Managers want to see employees go to other parts of the organization to learn and understand what's going on. They don't want people to stay in place, for 20 years necessarily. They want to have that, and actually, to ascend in the organization, there's a high value placed on people that have had multiple assignments in the organization, and I think that is one of the things that we've seen in terms of being able to retain people, keep them attracted to the work that they do, because quite frankly, when life was good at our agency, it was not uncommon for people to go 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 in like 5 or 6 years. And so now we're looking at the non-supervisory 15s and saying, wow, we don't know if we can afford that kind of workforce anymore. And so people that were there 10 years ago when everybody got promoted are now like the new folks that have come in over the past 5 years. They're like, well, where's my 15? So I think as part of the strategy of management, it has to be that you're going to tell people that, hey, the new reality is that there's going to be a lot more horizontal movement, within the organization, and we can't promise you, that if after 5 years you're going to be at X position. But it's part of sort of the mindset about valuing what people bring to the table, valuing their diverse backgrounds, and allowing them to blossom and grow in multiple parts of the organization. So I would build upon a lot of what Catherine mentioned in terms of best practices and strategic workforce planning and all those things. But I think at the end of the day, you got to understand your business, you got to understand what the program folks want, you got to support them, and to do that, you need to be able to bring in the best talent. You just can't park them in their job once they get there. You got to grow, develop, nurture them, take care of them. We'll get later into mentoring programs and taking the meaningful time to develop people, because they want to do more than just come to work every day and just work 8 or 9 or 10 hours, whatever they do.
Carlise, you want to add anything on this area?
Sure, I'd be happy to add a little bit. In addition to some of the things that have already been said, I think at USDA we really have been looking at attracting the students and the recent graduates through the new Pathways program. USDA has, in a way, a built-in recruiting audience in that there are agricultural colleges and universities, including the 1890 schools, historically black colleges and universities, as well as the 1994s, which are tribal colleges and universities that often have a very agricultural focus to the training. And we've been able to fully utilize those networks that we have, contacts that we have in terms of agricultural research, to also help us with recruiting some of the new part of our workforce. We also were able just recently to get agricultural sciences incorporated into the PMF STEM program. So we're very excited about that. And I think the other piece of what we've been talking about that is maybe a little bit, that's very important at USDA is once we attract these people to help retain them, we have a very robust onboarding program. And as part of that, their own growth and development comes right up front. They get performance standards so they understand how the work they do contributes to the mission. And then they also have their first discussion with their supervisor about their own career growth and development. So I think all of that is really important in terms of attracting and retaining our talent.
Great, why don't I let you segue us right into the next functional area of learning and development. And as we've already alluded, there's a lot of interest and necessity for horizontal development. And that it's not, and we're gonna have to manage some expectations of it's not just upward movement, and calling them career ladders almost, you know, it sort of envisions an upward only. I like the career lattice, which it couldn't be sideways, it could even be taking a step down in order to be able to perhaps telework, or to perhaps work in another location. I know some of our officers take a step down because they want to work in another location and there wasn't quite the same grade job or something like that. So career lattices, all-way movements is really what we really need to be offering and thinking about in terms of the full suite of learning, development, and career mobility. So why don't you take us into that as a Chief Learning Officer as well as a Chico, a Deputy Chico.
All right, happy to do that. We have a variety of programs that we offer at no cost to all of our employees at USDA, regardless of whether they're here in headquarters or around the world, any of our locations around the world. And a big part of that is that horizontal development. Mary mentioned mentoring. We have a mentoring portal where employees can sign up and request a mentor. And we also have mentors from within the agency who sign up to participate. And when we started this program, I think one of the biggest challenges we had was with our mentors. People were willing to be mentors, but they just didn't know how. So what we've done is we've created some guidance that really kind of helps them understand how to be a good mentor. We've created several different types of training. Some of it is electronic, some of it is video-based. Sometimes if people want, we will actually go and do it in person to help them really understand, how do you do this? How are you effective at it? And we're very excited that this program is really growing, and people really do understand the value of a mentor and how that mentor can really help them understand how to be effective and how to look at their career in the organization. We also created something called the Detail Opportunity Registry, because we found that within USDA, which has 17 agencies and 18 offices, that details were announced, but they were announced very locally, where people might be interested in growing and developing and learning some new skills without having to be promoted or go through that process through non-reimbursable details. I think this year in our budget, we are permitted to go up to 60 days on a non-reimbursable detail. The reimbursable detail is always an option, but in this constrained time of budgets, it can be a barrier. So we created that opportunity so people, hiring managers could post opportunities, and employees can also put in information to express their interest in serving on a detail. And that has really grown immensely. People can work across functions, they can contribute to teams and work with a whole new different type of group that they've never worked with before. And we recently just got a little bit of experience with something called Open Opportunities. I think it's something right now that's only available for the IT community, but it is a similar to our detail registry. It's a place where people can post projects, where employees can work 20% of their time on a project. And that is actually, 20% is something that doesn't have to be in your performance standard. So you don't have to have a certain grade or a certain type of job series to do that, but you may have some talents and abilities. And we did it with our IT folks, and now we're looking at expanding it out. So those are just some things that are helping in that area.
No, that's Those are great examples. Thank you for sharing those. Let's come back this way. Miriam, you have some examples from
Yeah, I mean, I
RC?
think that we're all doing kind of very, very similar things. I think a couple things that I would just say is more generic comments about making all of this work is that you really need to have top-level commitment to these programs. And one of the things I think that our agency stands out for is that when we have our executive director and all our senior office directors together, I mean, you know, our executive resources board will get heavily invested in leadership development and where the agency is going. They will take a keen interest in what those programs are, what they consist of. And so while every agency has, you know, their own leadership development programs and their candidate development programs, we've tried to take it to another level, and we used to have this tagline, you know, leaders at all levels, but the point was really that you could be a lead administrative assistant and, you know, you need to be a situational leader, right? You could just be in a group on a team, and you need to be able to have skills to run that team, even though you're not formally a team leader. And so we've kind of tried to develop some programs that we call aspiring leaders, because, you know, we're in a period of retrenchment, and so there's people that are still thirsting for that information. How do I become a leader? And so we've tried to provide a combination of online learning plus some hands-on learning, you know, in a classroom setting, so that, you know, the aspiring leaders of the future have a really understanding of what's the demands on them in this current workforce, even though there may not be the same level of opportunities that there once was. The only other thing I was going to mention on mentoring is that there's mentoring and then there's mentoring, right? And so a lot of people think they need the highest people in the food chain to be their mentors, and sometimes, you know, they're so far removed from that person or that individual, you know, that's not always a good match. So similar to what Carlise was mentioning, we spend a significant amount of time making sure that we have people that want to be mentors. We have people, you know, and making sure that the mentees know what it is, you know, to be mentored, and making sure they have the skill sets that they need. And so we've done like a flash mentoring kind of event so that we can make sure that people can kind of like shop around and, you know, see where they, you know, get the most bang for the buck, or, you know, in a 3-minute or 4-minute conversation with that person, hey, is that a good match for me? And so that has actually helped to improve the program. So that's just a couple little things from our agency.
Thanks. Catherine?
Yeah, well, I'd echo what the other panelists were saying about things they're doing in terms of mentoring, the leadership development program. We've done a little change, a couple changes on our leadership development program. One of the things that we're looking at and we've implemented is when folks are in those leadership development programs, that they're actually not just staying in their component, that they're being almost forced to go into, or encouraged, strongly encouraged to go into another component. Say if they're going to do a rotation, to give you an example for SES CDP, you know, it's always nice to say in your same component, that's the world you know, but if you go over into another component, say if you're with Customs and Border Patrol, then you're going over to the Coast Guard, you're meeting a whole new network, you're learning another section of the department. So we found that our employees are really enjoying that, so that's been very positive. Another thing that we're doing to kind of break down those stovepipes in terms of giving all of our employees across DHS opportunities is when I got there, we had 9 learning management systems. Now we're putting in place 1 learning management system so that all our employees will have the opportunity to have the same learning management system across the department, and there's going to be a sharing of the learning modules and training opportunities for all of our employees. So that's something, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's something that we're going to allow for all our employees. So it kind of eliminates the have and the have-nots that we had across DHS. So very positive. Worked with our unions on that as well as our employees. So good things.
Great. Oh, Carlise wants to add.
Just one more quick thing. As we have some of these programs, mentoring details, including rotations, projects, we think about, you know, the development, we typically think about the development for the individual that's doing that, but actually it's also, it's development for the mentors. It's development for the teams that have these people on their team. If you someone leaves on a detail, it may be development for somebody who has the opportunity to fill in behind that person and learn something new. So there's a lot of leveraging with these opportunities that go on. It's not just that particular individual. but it's actually for the whole organization.
Right. I'd like to just add, I'd be remiss on the eve of the 14th anniversary of 9/11 to also say that it was actually enacted in the Intelligence and Terrorism Prevention Act after 9/11 that the 9/11 Commission wrote, that it was mandated in the intelligence community to have joint duty rotations. In order to be eligible for senior executive service, you had to have served in another agency outside of your home agency. And that was put in hard and fast, and so I was part of putting that in place. And it really was that whole 70-20-10 model that you read about, where 70% of learning occurs through experiences. Well, not sitting in a classroom being told or looking at PowerPoints, it's walking in the shoes. And the failure of 9/11 was the failure of us to treat it as a community, and we were stovepiping our intelligence and not sharing, because our culture was, keep it very, very close hold. And so just being part of that initial and seeing people from the CIA go to the DIA or the NSA, and they're like, I had no idea that geospatial was doing this while this, collection was doing that. And they start seeing the bigger picture, and they start understanding the different pieces, and talk about thinking more broadly and being more of a broader team than the piece of the puzzle that you're working on. So I really, and I'm a big advocate, as you know, because I think all SES should have to have served in another agency, maybe in the big departments that would work, multiple agencies and like a DHS, but you don't know the breadth of what the government is about and what you're doing if you haven't seen the policies, practices, procedures, and missions and how the approaches are. And I'm really glad to hear and see more rotations and more success in that, because everyday managers have to get their job done, and they don't want to lose their talent. They don't want their talent away from getting those results. And so it's kind of counter sometimes to what we reward in leaders in delivering results, to let their best people move on and take another assignment to develop them, but they then return on that investment to a better, certainly a better, broader thinking. So that whole horizontal learning and experiential learning is, I'm hearing a great theme across the agencies we have represented here.
And that's something at DHS, we've had some joint duty
Yes.
assignments.
Yep, because you're
especially
part
in
of the IAC.
intel. Right,
Right.
so we've always been doing that,
Yeah.
but our current secretary is really putting an emphasis on joint duty, because he believes exactly what Elizabeth said, like, you gotta get out.
You gotta get
You
out.
gotta get out, you gotta go to the other components, even outside of DHS, for opportunities to learn what other agencies and departments are doing to make you a better executive. So very exciting, and we got a lot of work in that area going on now.
Yeah, Miriam's comments reminded me that her boss, Darren Ash, participated last year on both a panel, a white paper, and a individual discussion on the next level of skills necessary for the IT folks and IT leaders is soft skills. That was based on CIOs and IT leaders, but I would imagine that soft skills is going to be something you need both horizontally and vertically for all aspects of the agency. And I was just wondering what your agencies are doing or looking at regarding soft skills.
I'll actually take that one, and not because you mentioned my boss, but so it's really interesting, because about 5 or 6 years ago, a former executive director was kind of noticing some changes in the workplace, and civility is probably the wrong word, but it was something along those lines. And so we noticed that there was a change in the environment, and so we started to have a series of executive leadership seminars, which is really to all branch chiefs and higher, on emotional intelligence, holding difficult conversations and those kind of things. And we started sensitizing the environment to that. One of the more recent innovations, and that's a strong word, that I embraced, and we just launched it this past summer, was we have a very active succession management program in our agency. As a small little agency, we have about 150 SES, and so we used to use criteria which we affectionately called ready now. Does that mean like you're ready to move to the next level? And we're a lot of Navy nuke background, so there's that whole mentality, and yeah, you've done this, and you're ready now, right? So one of the things that I committed to the former chairman, she's now gone, but we delivered this past year, was in succession planning this past summer. We developed a series of what we called exceptional leadership attributes. They're basically based on the ECQs, but what we did for the first time was we actually talked about each individual, not only about their technical competence, which in an agency like ours, I mean, that's like a heavy focus, but we actually talked about each individual with respect to their emotional intelligence. Because the other parts of our job that we don't talk about right now is, you know, we all have gainful employment because we have active employee relations issues, right? And a lot of times what happens is, you know, people don't know how to manage people don't have the soft skills that they need. So we have absolutely put a premium on emotional intelligence, what people need to do to excel in that area, whether it's through sensitivity, exposure to the training, and the discipline of emotional intelligence and what's that involved. In some cases, there might be executive coaching. Some people call it intervention. I mean, you know, so depends
Yeah.
where you sit. But I think that's a really important component, and especially in an agency like ours where there's such a premium on technical prowess, sometimes at the expense of the softer side. So we're trying to take a step to sort of ameliorate that situation.
Anybody else want to join? All right, let's take the last one and then open it up for more questions and comments from our participants today. So employee performance, retention, engagement. Another big area in talent management, and it's certainly important to recognize employee performance. And as we've come through lean years of less monetary rewards and more creative recognition, and actually we've seen success that employees really do enjoy the non-monetary recognition and reinforcement and kind of incentives around knowing where they stand and how their performance is contributing to the mission. So we asked the panel to come up with some suggestions on how we can continue. What kind of programs are you using in this whole arena, and are you seeing this relationship between performance and engagement, and also, you know, the lean times, how creative can you get with making sure this is part of your talent management fabric? Catherine?
Well, I'll start off. That's employee recognition is something that I think in the past DHS didn't really do as well as they could have, and primarily probably because we were so focused on achieving that mission. We have hardworking people. You know, we're watching out for that homeland every day, just giving it 110%. And one of the things that our current secretary, when he came in, and he was concerned that our folks weren't getting the recognition that they deserve. And so he put back in place the Secretary's Awards program that had not been done in over 5 years. In fact, I think it was 6 years, where he personally, along with our deputy secretary, gave awards to over 300 DHS employees. And he took the time, they both took the time out of their busy schedules to gather the folks, some of them were done virtually, and just say thank you. Thank you for a job well done, because there are so many things in our agency, so many wonderful things that are done by our employees that just don't get recognized. So many things that are averted that, you know, the public doesn't even hear about. So many things that our employees were doing on their off time, saving lives, putting their lives on the line to save others. No one would even hear about it. So he's really put an emphasis on employee recognition. On our inward-facing webpage, we see every day the good work that our employees in DHS are doing, just going beyond the call of duty to make this country a better place. The other thing that he wanted us all to do is to recognize one another. And we have really put in place some very strong peer-to-peer recognition programs where we have our employees on the lookout for outstanding acts. So if someone sees one of their fellow coworkers doing a good thing, they can put them in for a peer-to-peer award. So we have that going on across the department. It's very exciting to see that. We've also done a couple other things in terms of, for example, the new IQ training. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that OPM rolled out, but that's also kind of a peer-to-peer. You know, you see someone doing something good in terms of treating others with respect and dignity, you know, give them a little token or a sticker or something and just say, hey, job well done. And that has really taken off. So I think our employees at DHS were really hungry for that, and they appreciate that thank you, whether it's coming from top leadership or if it's coming from the peer that's working side by side. So it's really changing a culture, but it's taken off, so this is a good thing.
Super great. Marian?
Very similar kind of things. I would mention just two things that I've noticed. It's not agency policy here, but there's a couple managers that actually like write letters of thank you to people, which to me is like a dying art these days. I think anyone who writes a letter, they get a lot of credit in my book. The other thing I think that's really important, and we take this stuff for granted, is actually just acknowledging people with like a hello in the morning and a smile. I mean, you'd be surprised how far that goes with an employee. I mean, sometimes you see people walk by the hallway, don't even acknowledge, you know, their peers, or they sit in the elevator and everyone's sort of looking around. So you can actually really impact someone's life by just acknowledging them, ask how their day was. Those are real simple things. Similar to what Catherine mentioned, and we just had it yesterday, is very briefly, we used to have these, what I would call lifetime achievement career awards, but when the awards pool was shrunk and our union decided they would rather, you know, save all the performance money for the end of the year and not do these elaborate award ceremony, we kind of got rid of the career achievement awards. And so after 5 years of not doing it, we actually did it yesterday as an honorary. And about 60 people from our agency were recognized for distinguished and meritorious service. All our commission was there, the chairman. And you know, even though there wasn't any cash associated with it, I mean, people were able to invite their family members and colleagues were there. And it's just acknowledging people that have worked, you know, 30, you know, sometimes 40 years as dedicated public servants. And even though there wasn't money attached to it, I think people just really appreciated the opportunity and the recognition.
And Carlos?
Yeah, at USDA, I think we're basically doing the same kinds of things. We have a secretary's honor program. I know Billy, he actually does write personal messages and encourages other people to do that. Encourages people to thank people personally, if not privately, then maybe at a staff meeting. We have an employee advisory council that we have instituted to generate you know, ideas about how to improve the workplace. That group does the peer-to-peer award, we call it the Praise Award, and there's a lot of meaning associated with that. So I think we're doing a lot of the same kinds of things, but I think we're also seeing that that being creative, like you're saying, Elizabeth, maybe we don't have the money that we used to have, and what we're finding is that this is just as motivational, if not more, than the monetary awards.
Well, let me open it up for some questions from the audience, and we'll start with those in the room, and then we'll go to the phone. Yes?
I had a question. First of all, thank you all for being here. I know how busy your schedule is, of course, and thank you for that. But something you, Elizabeth, brought up about credential certificate, and that's really important that I've thought about. And you know, everybody is after someone with a degree, and coming from academia organization, that's fine. But you know, being a credential certificate in the days that we live, for example, in cybersecurity, when it comes to security in particular, food safety, or even nuclear knowledge, something that is more like a workshop or up-to-date type of training. You promoted it, but I was wondering if other agencies are doing something about it to have trainings that are short, up-to-date, and offered to the employees without having to go through 4 years or expecting them to have that.
Absolutely. We do some events, you know, just a one-day event. Sometimes it's just a morning event where people can come and listen to a particular topic, ask an expert, get information to help them, you know, kind of update, and you know, that's just one thing that I can think of.
Or is it like a certificate comes with, because you know, that sort of gives the employees a incentive to say, you know, I'm getting something out of it too.
I would say for all of our,
yeah,
for all of our programs, we do have certificates, and we find that for some people, they really value and appreciate the certificate, but most people really want the certificate to be associated with something else, like promotion, or, and in those cases, that it can't always be possible. There are some cases where it is possible and it is necessary, but other cases when it is not. So I think that's, we have to think that through and plan but we always have, people can always get a certificate if they would like to have one.
So I'm a big on, I think that competencies is and credentials are the currency of a career, right? So from my time at the National Skills Standards Board and talking about how degrees are one thing, but it really doesn't tell you what you really are capable of in terms of skills, aptitudes, and experiences. So moving to where, and I think I'm picking up on you, I've said I wouldn't stereotype millennials, but I certainly think the mobility piece of people wanting to have proof that they're capable of doing something after they've finished, not just, because I'm a big 70-20-10 person, I'm not just going to a course, sitting there for a week and listening and maybe learning a knowledge, but a credential after you've applied that knowledge and gotten results or made an impact with it. Then you give them a credential that they can put on their resume, that they can then be more marketable because they've got skills that might make them stand above another candidate that they are competing with. And so they may not, we don't have everything to drive to promotions because we don't know how many, and they're kind of slowing down, they are slowing down. But if it makes them more marketable in terms of sort of their credentials, I think that is something we should be looking at more than just a certificate that comes out of your LMS system after you've taken your training, but maybe giving that as another recognition that you've met a bar in terms of a competency or a skill set that you've applied. And I think that is something that a new generation of a workforce are going to want to have. It's not time at an agency that tells us what you can do. 2 years at NRC or 10 years at NRC, I don't know what you can do. But if you've shown me credentials of applying competencies and that you've continued to grow and learn in your field and you're current in your field, because your degree may have been 10, 20, 30 years ago, that's what we got to build into our talent systems. And that's what I think what management's going to be looking for when they have the C. And we do get tons and tons of resumes and applications. What makes people stand out? So I'm picking up on your, we're talking about the same thing, but we haven't quite gotten there, I think, in terms of our systems.
Well, and in cybersecurity, for example,
Cybersecurity
do you really need a
yeah.
4-year degree
Yeah.
to be a cyber ninja? No. I mean, a 2-year degree?
Most high school kids are the ones
Oh,
hacking and
And you know what? They're not good at it.
I know.
You know? And you
Believe
look at
me,
those
I know who's recruiting them.
Yeah,
in
I
our-
mean, sometimes the cyber breaches isn't always who you think it might be. But there's some really great creative high school students out there that know what the heck they're doing. And there's some great folks in 2-year institutions, community colleges that are great at cybersecurity. And do we need to really put them through a 4-year program at a college to have them come out and say, hey, now you're a cyber ninja? No, you don't need that. So, the certificates, show us what you can do. Those events where folks are hacking systems and cyber competitions, you can find some fabulous talent there. So it's really forcing the government to think a little bit differently on what we're requiring of people. Like, it is what
And how
Elena
we
said.
measure the
How we measure-
capability of the
What can
human.
you do? What can you do? Show us.
Other questions? Yes, in the back.
Can I piggyback off of what you both are saying? I'm with DHS, S&T, in the CFO's office. Travel, financial services, so it's a layer down. But my expertise is in travel, policy, best practices, that sort of thing. Okay, so in connection with what you were saying, I have 2 certifications from private sector and a degree that shows, I'm a travel executive. However, within the agency, it doesn't distinguish me necessarily. So how can I leverage that? And I do a lot of stuff, so I'm trying to promote myself and build my skill sets and competencies. Excuse me, I'm nervous. But what can I do more? How do I direct myself, career path? I'm in the mentoring program, but it's not as, I'm not getting as much as I thought I might get out of that. So what can I do?
So let me repeat the question for those on the phone and summarize it, paraphrase it a little bit. The question is around a person in the room who is an expert in travel and travel-related systems and her credentials from the private sector aren't translating necessarily to the public sector, and her certificates and are not really necessarily being recognized, and it's hard for her to demonstrate the link between the competencies and skills she has to what is needed in the sort of general schedule and the classification standards, I'm guessing, in the occupations that we have in the government. And so there is, and you're just saying, there's not really recognition of what we're talking about yet, where there is a good common set of, well, these are the competencies, and if you get them in private sector, that shouldn't dissuade you from coming and bringing them to the public sector. But we, in the public sector, don't get me started on how antiquated our system is, but you know, time and grade and how many years you have at a GS9 is supposed to equate to something versus what we've been talking about. So I get that you and many are struggling with this, and if we want to have a fluid system where people come into the public sector, maybe go private sector for a while, come back to the public sector, we got to make the competencies similar enough and linking so that we can show you where those competencies link to the occupations we have and the career mobility plans that we have. And it is really, I think, a perfect example of what this generation, certainly the newer hires, are asking for and saying, but I don't translate to 2 years as a GS9. That's kind of like, I don't even know what that is. Here's my credentials, here's what I can do, and speak to that. So I don't know if you, Carly's gonna.
I have a couple of practical suggestions. One is to look for opportunities to volunteer to help with some kind of effort where you get the opportunity to sort of demonstrate to other people that you do have these competencies, maybe even there's something you developed out in the private sector, but not necessarily what you get to use every day on the job that you do on a day-to-day basis. And that will show people that the skills you have are broader than the position that you hold. The other thing I want to do, and I'm trying to move toward, and maybe with some help from my friends in the IT community, we just had our first IT Fellows Leadership Development Program, and that group had some tremendous ideas about developing talent in the IT community that we could apply across USDA. One of those was developing a skills inventory, which would be a great place where people could document these certificates, the fact that they have these certificates and they have these skills. Some of them may not even relate to the job that they're doing today, but they may be needed for a particular issue that an organization is dealing with. And what we're hoping for is to build something where people can load that kind of information in. So look for a skills inventory type thing where you can put information about yourself into the system. Then people can find you, and maybe through a project-based or detail opportunity, you can even get a chance to demonstrate your skills.
Great, thanks. I just want to make sure, anybody on the phone have a burning question, because I want to wrap it up on time. I have one more question for each of the panelists, but anybody on the phone? Okay, great. I wanted to wrap up with one question because we have such amazing expertise and experience sitting here. I brought something very special with me, and this is a wand. So if you don't see me because you're on the phone, I'm holding up a little glittery wand with some ribbons, and I have asked each panelist to say if they had the wand, the magic wand, to fix one talent management challenge in the federal government, what would it be and why? So I'm going to pass the wand, and Catherine's going to answer that question.
Actually, we can do it. We can work all together, and that is public perception of what the federal employees do. We need to fix that because every day our people go out, they're working hard, putting their lives on the line in many instances, and unfortunately in the media, on the Hill, and other places, we're getting a bad rap, and it all needs to stop. So,
all of that. All right, Miriam.
I don't know if I could top that. So mine's gonna be like, I'm gonna like sprinkle this little fairy dust all over the place, but I have two and they're tied, so you all can see which one you think is more important. I was gonna say market-based compensation, we need to get that, and performance management systems. I mean, I've been on the Chico Council for I don't even know how many years, and we gotta do something about it. It's broken.
Great.
I love this question. I have a magic wand. If you come to my office, I will show it to you. It's green. It doesn't look quite like this, but you know, every day I think like we are doing so many amazing things. And when I got this question from Elizabeth, I was like, wow, I love this question. Being in the field of talent development for most of my career, I think what I would like to do is touch all of our executives, our managers, and our supervisors, and give them a passion for developing the talent that they have on their team. I know they're very focused on the mission, but if they can understand that by mobilizing that talent, how much more they could achieve. That's what I'd like to see, so that we really aren't having these conversations about how to get people to do some of the things that we talked about this morning. We're actually having to figure out, how do we hold this back?
Did you notice how when she said that, it was man, she just softly.
That would have been like, bam, she's waving the wand. So I'd like to, I'm getting my wand back, and I'd like to say that while I love having this little prop of a wand, I think we do have the talent here on the panel, here in the room, on the phone, part of this community and part of the broader community. We can do this. We are all in this together. There's great successes, the nuggets, the examples today, and they're all over. So join with us, be part of this partnership to get talent management, integrated talent management solutions for our people, for organization success, and appreciate the time. Debbie, thank you. Bill, Bob, for inviting us today, for hosting this excellent session. It was a pleasure to be part of it, and thank you all for your time to be part of talking about this and keeping the dialogue and the solutions out there alive, because I'm sure everybody will take something away from today, so thank you.
And like I said on the phone, Elizabeth has more fun with the panel than, than we probably enjoy, so, thank you.